Hey guys, Vern Danke. Today we're going to do a little bit of an expat interview with my neighbor Alan. And Alan, welcome to the channel. Thanks for coming on. So I wanted to interview Alan because Alan has a history of being around cars growing up back in the USA, and his history and the things that he got involved with were really interesting. And being a car guy myself, I'm curious to hear more about your story and to kind of learn what you have to share and share some of those things that a lot of people have never got to experience. So let's get into that. So you said you grew up dividing a little bit of your time between Oregon and California, is that right?
Okay. With 1 year in Texas.
Okay, so you're in Texas. And you did a little bit of football as a youth, and that was down in Chico?
McLeod, California, and then Chico, yeah.
Okay. And
I never played for Chico. Like
Okay.
I said, I flunked my physical.
Okay. And is there a reason you flunked your physical?
Yeah, because I crashed my brother's Volkswagen.
Oh, and what happened there?
I woke up in the hospital with wires coming up out of my head and shining bright lights in my eyes, and I had to take my physical the next day.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So what kind of Volkswagen was it?
Brand new 1973 Super Beetle.
Oh,
Brand new,
no.
had 560 miles on.
Is that like the 1600cc or the
Yeah.
1200cc? Okay. And how did your brother react to that one?
He was pissed because his surfboard was on the top of it.
Oh.
He didn't. The car didn't bother him, but the surfboard did.
Okay. Oh boy. Oh boy.
What I did is I paid him whatever down payment he made. Paid him back for the one payment he had made on it,
Okay.
and then I took over payments. I paid it off.
Well, you did. So how badly damaged was it?
In total,
Oh boy. And that was back in the day, what, 3,500, 40?
I don't remember what he paid for it.
Okay.
Seems like I paid on that thing for a long time.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Because back then, I think you could buy a brand new car for $2,000 to $3,000 is what I remember reading. And that was a lot of money back then,
I
right?
think I actually got like $300 or $400 for the motor out of it, which instantly failed on the guy because when it was upside down, all the oil leaked out of it.
Oh boy. So he ran it without filling it?
I guess.
Oh boy.
He wasn't very happy.
I guess not. Huh? You were telling me a story of back in the day, your dad had a 65 tri-power GTO convertible. That's a pretty impressive car, and it's an expensive car back in the day.
Yeah.
So did he know somebody special in the dealer? Was he kind of a big-time car guy from back then? How did he get interested in that kind of a car?
All the people he worked with had factory hot rods.
Oh, wow.
All of them.
Wow.
And they were a bunch of... My stepdad, and he wasn't actually old enough to be my biological father.
Okay.
So he was just a big kid too then.
Ah. And he was your first influence of how you basically got into cars. You got to see him and
Yep.
bonded to that
Yep.
and his buddies.
Yep.
So besides that car, what was cool to you when you were growing up?
I like 55 Chevys and old coupes and stuff like that.
Okay. Like the 20s coupes or the
No,
30s?
like the 37s and the 40s and
Okay.
gasser type.
Ah, okay. Straight axle front? Okay, right on. So you also mentioned you had an interest in racing and hot rodding, and your dad wasn't too into that at the time?
And he never did encourage it, although he would explain things to me and, how to fix things and tune things up and let me use his tools until one day he ran over one of his wrenches with a lawnmower.
Oh!
I didn't get to use his tools anymore, but that year for Christmas, I got my own set.
Wow, there you go. So he still wanted you to do something with
Right.
your talent. Well, that's cool. Back at that time, you were watching racing, you were walking. You told me you had to hitchhike to the races?
I have before, yeah.
Okay. And so who was encouraging the racing scene? Was it just something that you got interested in? Was it a passion that began early? How did you get into that aspect of it?
Through my exposure in Texas,
Okay.
and like I said, all my dad's friends had hot rods, and everywhere you went, there were hot rod magazines, and
Okay.
I read all that cover to cover to cover to cover over and over and over.
Wow.
And whenever I'm interested in something, I try to learn as much as I can.
Sure. Sure. So you were really into it at an early age.
Yeah.
And so, how did you start by getting your first car? What was that like?
Oh God, just liberation.
Yeah.
And my dad actually picked that out for me. He found it, 56 Ford Victoria,
Okay.
289,
Nice.
3-speed, black tuck and roll interior.
Ah.
Nice.
Did you put the tri-power on there? That was a big thing to do back
No,
then.
it had a factory 4-barrel on it.
Okay. Well, that's kind of rare
Mhm.
because most of them had what, the 2-barrel?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was it 3 on the tree or?
No, it was floor.
Oh, it was on the floor.
Yeah.
Really? Was that modified or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 56 Fords didn't have 289s in them.
Okay.
So one Saturday morning, comes out there, and I'm changing the rear end in it.
Oh.
And he says, "What are you doing, boy?"
Huh.
I said, "I'm changing the gear ratio."
Oh.
He goes, "Oh, okay." Walked back in the house. He didn't realize that the night before, I was only 15.
Uh-huh.
I pushed it down the street and started it up and went out street racing.
Oh.
And blew the rear end up in it.
Oh my gosh.
So I was changing the
boy.
gear ratio, but
Now, was it a pumpkin assembly that you could
Yeah.
pull out? So you didn't have to
no.
do all the other fancy stuff that you would have to do if you had to change a ring and pinion,
Right,
which is
no,
a nightmare. Okay.
I got the rear end, third member out of a 55 Ford ambulance.
Oh, wow.
Had 410s in it.
Oh, boy. And how was that after for racing?
Big difference with that little no torque 289.
So it was a pretty strong rear end as compared to the other one, or the same, or?
Same.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably spent every last dime you had on cars when you were growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked that whole summer to pay for that car when I was on my third car when I turned 16.
Oh, wow. Because that was kind of a guy's whole trip back in the day, to get into cars and to spend all your money on it, because that was how life was inspired. Like you say, the races were a big deal. People would watch TV, they'd see their favorite racer and go home and try to do some stuff.
Right. I was a dishwasher / cook at a Denny's
Oh, wow.
when I was 15.
Okay. And that was paying for the car
I
habit.
paid $275 for it.
Oh my gosh.
2 Stone mags.
That was a good deal.
Oh, it was a pretty car.
That was a good deal. So did it come from a one-owner family, or was it a lot? Or?
No, I don't really know the history of it other than the fact that the family that we got it from.
Okay. Cool. After that, how did you get into really getting obsessed with cars and finally start racing? How did that change happen in your life? Because you said you went to college, and did you finish school, or did you actually start racing before you went to school?
I didn't start sanctioned racing till I was about 25. It was all street racing.
Okay. So you were done with college and school by then?
Yeah.
And then your jobs then were paying for that more expensive
Yeah,
version of...
I was working a man's job.
Okay.
With a man's pay.
Okay. And were you still that obsessed where all your money was still going into
I was crazy.
Okay.
I was crazy. I probably shouldn't have done it, but I did.
Okay. So they say once you start going fast, it's never fast enough. So is that true? You always need to feel something faster once you get used to that limit that you reach?
I had a shift in what I enjoyed. I first enjoyed the acceleration.
Okay.
And then after a couple of years of that, and especially driving the open wheel car dragsters and stuff like that, then I really liked the top speed.
Okay. Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like going real fast.
Wow. So what's the fastest you've been?
220.
Wow. And what did that feel like?
It was pretty cool.
People...
I got where I didn't even feel the acceleration anymore.
Oh my gosh.
It seemed like I didn't feel it.
Ah.
You've heard people say, "I'm going to tape $100 bill to the dash, and you can have it if you can grab it."
Right.
I'll grab that son of a bitch.
Every time.
Don't pull that trick on me.
Wow.
I'll reach up and get it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're used to that. That thrust.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you still wanted to go faster after 200 some miles an hour?
Oh yeah.
And how much faster would you like to go?
Oh, I'd go 320.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'd drive a modern day top fuel car in a heartbeat.
Interesting. So your price is to go faster. That must have really increased a lot too, from from going to getting to the point where you had thrust to where you actually had a higher top end?
It's all about having a lightweight car.
Okay.
Just by going to a tube chassis dragster, the same motor that was in your 10-second street car is going to run 8s now. So.
Okay. So just light.
So the cost actually went down.
Oh, no kidding. So the availability of cars and parts was probably, well, I guess it may have been more readily available when you were younger because you could buy a lot of that stuff at the dealership. And then when...
Or junkyards.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when stuff started to kind of go the other direction, when it was kind of outlawed for racing and for going fast, the image started to kind of go down because the insurance company. What was it like then? Did the market kind of crash out for a while?
I remember mostly it was a gas crunch that killed.
Okay. More than the insurance.
Yeah, you would see hot rods for sale, factory hot rods for sale, dirt cheap because they got such lousy gas mileage.
Oh, no kidding. So the big badass cars were the ones that went the cheapest back in the day? No kidding. Oh my gosh.
Well, I've been pretty much all around the U.S.
So the journey, for you, it's been the journey more than the destination.
Right.
Okay. And how many places do you think you've been racing?
30.
Okay.
Probably 30 different tracks.
Okay. And your favorite track?
Got to be Seattle, or with Medford, Oregon, probably just close second.
And the worst track?
I've been down some dirt bag tracks. I won't say those two because those people are still my friends.
Okay.
Walla probably.
Okay.
It looks like
Washington,
bombed out World War II landing strip is what it basically was.
Oh my
for
gosh.
Training bombers.
No kidding. Wow. That sounds pretty rough.
Or Reading in the old days, the guardrail was buried heavy equipment, half buried heavy equipment tires. So could you imagine hitting one of them?
Oh my gosh.
It bounced right up in the air.
Right, I bet it would. Because that ain't gonna deflect, right?
No.
What was the baddest engine, the baddest factory engine that was raced, in your opinion? Who made the baddest engine?
Oh, 426 Hemi.
So it was the Hemi. So the only
Without
thing,
a doubt.
so the difference,
And on a limited, numbers limited would be the Camry Ford. The 427
okay.
Camry. Single overhead cam motor.
I'm not familiar with that one. I know they made a 427
That's
and
a
a
Boss
428.
429.
Okay. That was a pretty limited machine.
Very limited and detuned for street use, but in its prime, it had some beans.
So that was a real engine then?
Yeah.
Okay. So the 426, that came out, I think, early. They called it the Max Wedge, the early version? What did
The
they?
first version was a race only.
That was a
Hemi.
Fireball or something.
It was.
I forget the name, how they called it, Fire Dome, or they had a weird name for the Max Wedge.
The Max Wedge stuff.
That was in the early 60s, right?
Yeah,
64.
and then I think 64, the Hemi came out, and it was basically a reworked wedge block with Hemi head.
Okay. Because I kept remember
Chrysler designed and built that motor in like 90 days.
Oh wow.
For NASCAR use because they were getting their asses kicked by everybody else.
Okay. Why was that engine so good? Was it just the hemispherical heads, the way the combustion chamber spins around?
Breathing.
Okay.
Yeah, with the port layout and the actual breathing. Although the combustion chamber was an advantage too, in that it allowed larger valves and opposed valves.
So the 426 was the engine to have.
Yeah.
And that was a very limited made engine. There weren't a lot of 426s.
The street Hemi or the race Hemi was, and then I think the street Hemi version came out in '66.
Okay.
And it was sold to the public.
So at the time, did people know it was that legendary? Was it, so they knew. Was it hard to get back in the day?
No.
Really?
No.
Did you find many 426 cars out on the street that were?
I've seen a few.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've seen high school kids driving them.
Okay. Because I don't.
Rich high school kids.
I only remember seeing a few cars back in the Midwest, back in the early '80s, but that was all that I remember. I don't really remember before that in the 70s really paying attention to the engines and the badging, but there were a few back in the Midwest because that was the General Motors scene, the all-American type scene. You bought an American car back then. You didn't buy Japanese cars.
Oh no,
that was not a thing that you did.
No.
You know, you bought the American cars and then you supported.
From 1961 on, you could buy real fast cars from the factory.
Okay.
The 409 Impalas were brutal, brutal power.
My buddy had 64 Impalas, and I got to ride in a 409 car. And I think it was kind of quick, but I think I remember my buddy's 67 2+2 428 4-speed car being a whole lot quicker. Would that make sense?
Yeah, was the Impala 4-speed too?
It was a 4-speed, yes. It was an SS.
Did he drive it like he stole it?
I don't know. I mean, it was his daily driver, so he
because they would destroy the transmissions or the rear ends if you.
Oh, they would. Wow, real torquey.
They were easily capable of that.
Oh my gosh. So this guy was known in the Midwest as Mr. 409 because he basically specialized in 64 Impalas, and that was his thing, 1964. So he would go around the country buying NOS moldings and emblems and cleaning out the dealerships and just pining the stuff
big
away.
Bucks for that stuff now.
Yeah, he did
big
well.
bucks
He
for
did
that
real
stuff.
Well.
So you see what California's doing now?
No, what?
They're gonna outlaw gasoline cars in 7 years.
No way.
Yeah, and Washington's soon to follow because they're like brother and sister socialists.
How do you outlaw
How do you?
something like that? That doesn't make any sense.
Who votes on that stuff?
I don't know. And how do you have an electric car that's sustainable without burning coal to charge the car?
And how come you afford the cars in the first place?
Well, that's it. Or
and
the batteries.
change the batteries
Yeah.
and the ecological damage that batteries do. And
Right. So you were raising hell as a kid, driving fast, partying like crazy, like there's no tomorrow. So you grew up through the late 60s and the early 70s, and you got to see the craziness of how life was like. And what was your favorite part of that with the car scene? What gave you the most joy? Was it, you said in some part it was going to the scenes and
meeting people along the way and making friends at the track, and
okay.
especially the second time around when you get to meet up with the same people again.
So what was the scene like back at that time? Was it just Party Central, the racing scene, or was it kind of more?
Yeah, it was.
It was.
Yeah, there was wild after hours.
Okay.
Yeah, if you've ever been to a big event and seen the mountain of booze that's compensated at the gate, you ever wonder what happened to all that at the end of the day?
They really went backstage, huh?
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
You ever turned over an empty 55-gallon drum of nitromethane and lit the bottom of it?
No. Oh boy.
It goes into orbit. It has to, because it doesn't come down anywhere by where you lit it.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, we did some wild and crazy things.
I had a neighbor that had a welding shop, and he filled up a bread bag
With acetylene?
with acetylene, and you just swore a bomb went off in the neighborhood.
It did.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm getting out of here because I couldn't stick around with that. And you guys were like nitromethane?
Empty.
Oh my gosh.
55-gallon drums.
Empty. So
Yeah.
it just had just the residual fumes. And that would go crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. How did you light that? Did you like have a
Another
fuse?
rag.
Really?
Gas-soaked rag.
And they just threw it at it and ran?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Huh. Wow. That's pretty crazy. I'd be worried about that thing coming down on a car or a house or a
We
person.
didn't worry about anything.
Oh my gosh. But if you tried that today, they'd like throw you in the slammer forever because you'd be like some outcast criminal, right?
Oh, yeah.
But back then, it was like, what are you doing?
Everybody's drunk.
Right. So when I grew up, I remember being on my grandparents' farm in the 70s, and they would take their empties and they'd just reach behind and let go, and the empties would fly into the back of the box, and the box would just be filled with 200-300 cans, and you'd just drive down the road, And you probably remember those days, huh? You just
I remember
sit there.
my grandpa kept his can of beer on the dashboard.
Huh.
Wasn't against the law.
Okay. I always wondered what the laws were. So it wasn't against the law. No kidding. So when did that change?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I don't know.
Because I remember 75, 76, 78, they were still doing that up in rural northern Minnesota, driving like that. And he never got pulled over, and he'd be like driving like this down the road. And I'm like, okay, are we going to get there?
And if they did pull you over, they'd give you a ride home. You know, things really changed.
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of the way it is here.
I think you're right.
You know.
Yeah.
I was down at the Red Table Resto Bar, and that was when I was kind of new here, and I asked the owner, I said, what do you do when somebody gets really drunk? She said, we call the police.
Oh.
And I go, really? You all them to jail?
Wow.
And she said, no, they come out and get them, and they'll take them home.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, that's what they do here.
Oh wow, that's
no
interesting.
problem.
Wow. You know, and that kind of used to be like that, kind of a community, right?
Yeah.
You know?
You know, they certainly don't want you driving, and they don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll get you home, buddy.
That's interesting. It's still human here.
Yeah. So we were at Medford one night, and we had won. So we all the racers went to the pizza parlor after the races. Everybody got a little looped up then, and I'm driving home on the freeway with an open trailer and a dragster on the trailer, and people kept pulling up next to me, flashing their lights and whatnot. And I looked in the rear view mirror, and my dragster had turned on the trailer totally sideways.
Whoa!
Blocking off one full lane on the left side and maybe 2-3 feet on the other side. It was just balanced on the oil pan.
Wow!
It had come unstrapped.
Oh boy. That was a lucky save.
Yeah.
What would that have cost you if that wiped out?
Oh God, I don't know. There probably wouldn't have been much left of it.
Okay.
We pulled over.
Have you ever like lost control of a dragster, rolled one, or had a wipeout or anything?
Close.
Yeah. What does that do to your heart?
Mostly, how am I going to get this fixed in a hurry? I had the whole front end fall out of my Roadster one time.
Really? Like
broken welds at the spindles.
Oh my gosh. So it's just dragging the whole time.
It actually, the left front wheel fell over, backing up from the burnout.
Oh wow.
It just fell off.
Oh my.
Which, had I had that not happened and I'd been going down the track making a pass, it would have been bad.
Right. Oh boy. So that was a kit you bought.
Yeah, and the tubing was super thin, which is why it failed.
Oh boy.
They never should have sold a kit like that. And I thought, oh wow, this is really light,
Right. But you don't know. You think that they got everything figured out, right? Because they're selling it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jerry Ruth was at that race. I don't know if you've ever heard him. He's a famous Top Fuel driver. Won a lot of races in Top Fuel.
Okay.
He was a grand marshal for that event, and he came over. We were friends, and he come over and said, "Hey, Alan, you need to hide this." He said, "NHRA's coming for it. Now they're going to pull your tag, your certification on the car."
Oh, you're kidding.
So we gathered up the pieces and hid it from them.
Oh, jeez.
And sure enough, here they come. They go, "Where's the car at?" And it's gone.
Oh boy.
It was hid in the back lot, and parts of it were in this guy's pickup truck, and
wow.
So they didn't get the tag. If they pulled a tag on it, I would have had to fix it and then have it re-tagged.
Okay. Is that a lot of money? A lot of time?
It's a little bit of a hassle, and probably $300 extra.
Okay.
But
is what it is.
it was good. He had some good advice. He'd been there.
Right. So have you seen anything crazy? You've seen a lot of bad accidents when you're racing?
Oh yeah.
Really? So I remember hearing about a race. I'm trying to remember when it was. It might have been in the 50s. And this car like disintegrated, and it went toward the stands, and the hood shot up into the stands. It was like a 50s, 57 Thunderbird or something, and the hood took people's heads off.
Oh, wow.
And stuff went into the axle went into the stands and tumbled through there. Was there anything crazy that happened when you were racing that was like really bad like that?
Yeah, I seen a nitro funny car jump the guardrail right off the starting line, and then on the backside of the guardrail spinning around in the dirt like a dirt bike.
Oh wow,
that was pretty awesome.
So a lot of guys stand really close to those cars when they're flagging them, and through the burnouts and stuff. Aren't those guys at a pretty big risk when they're in those
I
pit
just
areas?
had some good friends seriously injured 2 weeks ago starting one.
Wow.
It blew the whole front corner of the block off when they hit the starter motor.
Oh my gosh. Wow. And that's from the nitro?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it blew the whole corner of the cylinder. One whole cylinder blown off.
Wow. And they talk about the transmissions having scatter shields. Have you heard of guys losing a leg or having something come through the?
Yeah.
Really? Wow. So it's not exactly a safe hobby.
No.
Okay.
You take your risk.
But you managed to do pretty well all those years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were pushing as hard as you could.
Yeah, but I was always safety conscious.
Okay. So you spent the money on safety then. Okay. Well, that's good. It's good to know. And that wasn't always the cheap route either.
No. You know, and if I could, except for the front end that I built, I tried to overbuild it a little bit.
Okay. That's a good idea. So what was the stupidest thing you ever did to a car? I figured that would inspire something.
I could be pretty hard-headed sometimes. You know, I would get an idea in my head, especially if it had been done 1,000 times before successfully, but it's not going to work for me.
Oh.
I wouldn't give up. I kept shooting the same stuff at it with the same results.
Yeah, that's insanity, right?
Yeah.
Huh.
When I was 15, I had a 58 Triumph TR3 and I put a small block Chevy in it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, at 15.
I always wanted to do something like that. How was that?
It was crazy.
Was it?
Yeah.
Was it stable on the road?
No, not really.
Okay.
Loud and stinky and open drive shaft with no floorboard on it.
Oh, wow. Did it still have
throttle linkage was a string over the windshield.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Did it still have the stock rear end?
No, I used the rear end out of that Victoria.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, the 411s.
Oh my gosh. You were able to get that in there and bolt it up, huh? Wow, that's funny. Huh. I have seen some V8 conversions and people always thought I was crazy. So how much did you have to modify it?
I just hacked it. I had a cutting torch and I just cut the whole inner fenders and dropped it in there.
Okay. So did the suspension handle the weight? It did? Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Because the engine that was out of it was probably fairly heavy. That big straight, was that straight 4 in that one?
Iron 4-cylinder,
Yeah. So that was maybe, and what engine did you put in it?
283 Chevy.
So that was
2 4-barrels.
I don't know if that was a light engine or not. 300
560 pounds, I think they were, something like that.
That's a heavy engine then.
Yeah.
It wasn't like an aluminum Rover engine or anything?
No.
Okay. So I had a Triumph TR8 that had a Rover engine in it, and that was pretty fun. That would have been an ideal engine for that Triumph.
Yeah. You know, the Rover engine's the same as the
Buick
Olds.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that. It took me a long time to figure out. If you look at the racing today versus the racing of yesterday, what's different today? Is it harder to get into racing? Is it more dangerous, more expensive? What's different today?
It's super more expensive. And dying. It's pretty much dying.
Okay. Is it because it got too expensive?
Yeah, and it's all corporate. There's no way. Back in the 60s, 3 guys with a good job could run a top fuel car.
Okay.
Now it's 3 corporations can run a top fuel car.
So it's that much money.
Yeah.
Do you foresee any small time race type events taking off like they did before, and maybe in a low cost way? Like
Yeah, the nostalgia thing is real big right now.
Okay.
And a lot of small tracks can afford a big show like of nostalgia cars because everybody's dragging their old hot rods out and restoring them.
Right. So what do you think about the new cars, the new engines? The Chrysler, they have some hot cars, and so does Ford, the Mustang, and
The Coyote and the
Corvette.
3rd generation Hemi and all the LS stuff. And
Are those engines way better than anything that was built in the 60s?
Not really.
No?
Some further refinement.
Okay.
And it's all sound engineering that they've known about since the beginning of the century.
Okay. So the question I guess I'm asking is, if you buy a stock car off the showroom floor, a factory hot rod, are they way better than anything that was built in the past?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You can buy 800 horsepower Corvettes that idle like a Cadillac.
Okay.
You know.
So it's the real deal.
Yeah.
It is the real deal. What would that make modified, or do you think they're not really modifiable much more than they are?
The 800 horse is already modified.
Okay.
The more horsepower you make, the harder it is to gain more.
Okay. So that's still, what is that out of, the Corvette? Is that still a 350 or is it changed?
It's some LS deal. I don't know exactly what their size of it is.
Okay.
That's all in liters now.
Okay. Right. I think they were talking about bringing back the 427, and maybe they modified that to a 435 or something.
Yeah, but that's still LS based.
Okay.
It may have the small block or big block number, but it shares nothing else.
Okay. Wow. So it's all totally different. Okay. So what do you think is the baddest engine that they make in our time frame now for a stock car? Is it the Hellcat? What do you figure?
Probably the BMW V8.
So I've heard of the BMW V8, and it was something that they've had out from a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
we were running dyno tests on my 57 Chevy one time. Free dyno day. So I hauled my 57 down there and they put it on a chassis dyno. The guy behind me had one of them BMWs.
Yeah?
It was 800 horsepower.
Oh my gosh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Now what did they call that? An M3, or they had a different...
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
I was baffled. That blew me away.
I found a V8 BMW coupe, and it looked like an 80s, maybe early 90s at the most, square body, like a what did I have? I had a BMW convertible, and it was the 325i. It looked like that body style, but with a V8 in it, and special fender flares on it. And I saw that in Thailand, on Koh Samui Island. Chad's got a hot rodded V8, and it looked pretty badass.
Twin turbo, probably.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
But those cars don't weigh anything. They don't weigh anything. But I didn't think that body, that unibody, could handle something like that. I didn't think they were that strong of a car. The metal in the BMWs, when you're welding pieces in, it seems like it's pretty damn flimsy. So how they got a V8 in one, I got no idea. Unless the whole
Barbarian Motor Works. They're crafty little buggers.
Unless that whole unitized body is completely upgraded to handle that. So it was Chad from CB Media that had that, and he's got one in Thailand also. His hot rodded.
Yeah, if the guy were to pick one of them up and then get one of these little aluminum bodied 2-wheel drive Jeeps.
Right. There was a racing group that used to race some of those Jeeps modified back in the days. I've seen the photos of them.
Right here?
They used to race them in the Philippines, yeah.
There's still some guys that drift them with like Toyota motors and Honda motors and stuff like that.
That would be another thing, the Toyota engines. Yeah. So Alan, if you could have one car, what would be the car you would buy?
Probably 66 GTO.
Okay. Tri-power?
Yeah.
Convertible?
Not a convertible, just a hard top.
Stick shift, auto?
4-speed.
Factory rims or modified?
No, I could live with factory.
So I think I would like a 65, what would it be? It would be the recreated 396 Chevelle, the Z16. I would want that. I would make that in a convertible with a 4-speed.
Nice.
That would be my car. Someday.
I'm done.
Someday.
I'm done with cars.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Now you're racing birds.
I'm racing birds now.
Yeah? So you're slowing it down? Now they're doing the racing. You're just doing the observing.
Endurance racing now.
There you go. Well, maybe in the end, it was all about the people more than it was the actual going fast. And maybe that was the real journey for you in the end. Connecting to the people and going to the racing and the scenes.
And I'm still in contact with a lot of them.
Nice. Nice. So at some point you'll sell everything you have, and then you'll You'll commit to this place 100%.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be here in the Philippines.
Yeah.
This is your forever home.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And I feel the same way.
Yeah.
So the thing that I miss here, you guys, there really isn't any kind of a car scene on this island. There's so few cars left. It's like they junked everything off. And it would be cool to have something to tinker with. Something to just fire up once in a while and go, yeah.
Oh, I would love to have my 57, my 56, any of my cars. I would just love to be able to drive them somewhere, you know.
Right. I would even be happy with something fiberglass that could have like a cool dual exhaust sound, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't have to be too crazy. Just something to get the blood going again and just the foot pedal, something to do, you know.
Something that'll smoke them.
There you go. There you go. Smoke them and
With
turn
a
some heads.
little thump to it.
A little bit of tunes going.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right. I'm all about that. I could build something fiberglass. You know, put a tub out there or something. That would be enough.
Yeah.
Just a tub chassis or something with a convertible top, little half top or whatever. That would be cool. So maybe someday, maybe I'll fire up the.
I'll build a frame for you if you build a body.
All right. So you never know, you guys. Maybe something in the future could be. So thanks a lot, Alan.
A sugarcane truck motor.
There you go. You've been talking about that.
Yeah.
You never know. Maybe some monster thing will come out here in the future. So keep tuned. So thanks, Alan. Thanks for chatting.
You bet.
All right.
Hey, Vern.